Wait, an oil change costs how much? Hey, how's it going, everybody? Dom from Formal Debut here. And on today's show, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about all of the costs associated with the GT350. I've been getting comments left and right. How much did it cost? How much did you pay for it? Everyone wants to know how much they paid for it. So we're going to go through all of the numbers. So behind me is my 2016 Ford Mustang Shelby GT350. I've had it about 3 months. So I've had enough time to make a few payments. I did an oil change on the car. I've done a little bit of research on the prices on some of the common maintenance items. I have a cheat sheet with me. Price, how much I paid, monthly payments, average interest rates. And then we're also going to go into ownership costs like maintenance, gas, insurance. So we're going to go through all of that today. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's jump right into it because we got a lot of numbers here to cover. So I'm going to put out a disclaimer before I start this video. All of these numbers are my numbers. These will vary per person, per location. It all depends on you and your location. So these numbers will vary. So starting off with the car itself, I bought the car because it came up at a really, really good number. The car was actually listed for $46,948. It is a 2016 Shelby GT350, and it had about 27,000 miles on it when I bought it. It's got almost 29,000 now. I've had it 3 months. I put some miles on it. So they had it listed for $46,948. I had about $10,000 of negative equity in the black Mustang GT, which was a huge, huge issue. When I went into the dealership, that was the big monster in my closet, was the massive amount of negative equity that I had on the GT. I bought a brand new car and I only had it for about 8 months. So I had about $10,068 of negative equity. I was $10,000 upside down. It's a massive amount of negative equity, and I wanted to bury that in this car. So that's what we did. I put $2,000 down. And so the total amount financed came to $55,017. I did negotiate with them on their addendum packages. Obviously, I told them I didn't want any of that, so they pretty much got rid of all of that. They were definitely eager to sell the car. So we did get rid of all that. So the total amount financed was about $55,017. Now, talking about that total number, I think that number is pretty well padded given the actual purchase price of the car, because these right now, 16, 17, with the Gen 1 Voodoo with around this miles, are selling right now for around mid-50s. So a total finance was about what what people are asking for them now. So I think it was well padded. The negative equity does suck, but it is what it is. It's something you got to deal with. So the interest rate, if you guys have bought a car recently or you know what's going on with the economy right now, it's pretty rough. Interest rates are pretty rough. My credit score is pretty good, but I only put $2,000 down. So the interest rate was 9.6%, which honestly for early 2025 and a car that's almost 10 years old, I didn't think that was all that bad. So the total amount financed was $55,017 with a 9.6% interest rate. That comes out to a payment of $1,163 a month for 60 months. So that's what I paid for it. Now for you guys, what you guys could expect to pay, I would say depending on your interest rate, depending on your credit score, and depending on how much you have to put down, I'd say anywhere from on the low end, maybe $800 to maybe $1,500 on the high end. That's probably the payment you're looking at if you're looking at one of these cars. So those are the numbers on the actual purchase price of the car, and that's what you guys can expect to pay. As far as market prices go, I'm seeing them anywhere from mid 40s on the low end to, if you get a Gen 2 Voodoo, a 19 or a 20, all the way up to 60, 70 grand, depending on mileage and everything like that. So it's a huge spread across the model year range. You guys should be able to find one in your price range. All right, so now let's move on to insurance. This is another thing, like I said at the beginning, that can really, really vary depending on where you are, where you live, what your driving record is like. I pay about $200 a month to insure this. It's not terrible, honestly. Believe it or not, when I bought it, the insurance actually went down from the GT, so they aren't terribly expensive to insure. Problem being, the parts are pretty expensive, so if anything does happen to it, the parts can be pretty expensive. So depending on your area, insurance, it's a hard thing to judge with insurance, but that's about what I pay, around $200 a month. Gas is a pretty expensive part of owning a car like this. Gas is a pretty big part of owning any performance car. Now, as we all know, gas prices have been up. They've been up for some time. They are starting to come down now. This does take 91 octane or higher fuel, so you do have to use premium fuel. I put 93 octane in it. So for me in my area, I'm in Southeast Florida, gas prices aren't terrible. You know, honestly, I'm paying about anywhere from $3.60 to $3.90 a gallon for premium fuel, and it goes through it rather quickly. It is a noticeable difference from my GT, even though the cars are roughly the same size. They're both manual and they have the same size fuel tank. It does go through gas a lot faster. So in the month of April alone, and keep in mind this car is a daily driver for me, so if you don't plan on daily driving it or you don't daily drive yours, your gas bill will probably be lower. If you do daily drive and you have a long commute, it might be higher. Full disclosure, I did do a lot of automotive events in the month of April, so I was driving a little bit more than average for me. I paid $210 in the month of April for fuel alone, so it can be very expensive with fuel, depending on how you're going to use the car. If you take the car out on the weekend and you burn through a quarter tank of gas, you know, it's really not that bad. Honestly, to fill up the car down here is about $60 to $70 to fill it up from empty, which I never really do. I usually run it down to half and then fill it. Gas can definitely be an expensive part of owning a car like this. All right, now moving on to the biggest expense in the book, and this is really one that I was not expecting, and that's maintenance. I thought when I bought the car that maintenance would be similar to that of a Mustang GT. They're really not all that different. I couldn't have been more wrong. The maintenance on this car and the common consumable items are incredibly expensive. Last week, I just did my first oil change. Disclaimer before I mention the thing about maintenance, I am a professional technician. I do have a shop. I do have access to lower parts prices. So just full disclosure, the numbers that you hear are what I'm paying. You guys will likely pay more. If you can find out a way to pay less, I'd be very, very surprised. So let's talk about your normal maintenance items, and starting off right off the bat with oil changes. I figured when I was writing up the numbers for this video, before I had actually done an oil change on the car, I figured anywhere from $150 to $200 for an oil change, which that estimate was high as it is. However, I did the oil change on this car, and I paid, just for parts at my wholesale price, I paid $215 for oil, a filter, and a plastic drain plug. That is insanely expensive. The reason for that is that this car takes 5W50 full synthetic oil, and there's only a few manufacturers that make 5W50 oil, one of them being Ford, which is where I got my oil from, because Ford uses it in the GT350, they use it in the GT500, in the Boss 302, and in the Ford GT, and that cost me about $17 a quart. You're looking to pay around $20 a quart for the engine oil for this, and it takes 10 quarts of oil. So if you were going into a Ford dealership, I would expect to pay anywhere from $300 to $400 for them to change your oil at a dealership. If you know anything about these cars and their propensity for engine failures, you know you want to be changing the oil as often as possible. I would recommend, Ford says every 5,000 to 7,000 miles. I would say every 2,500 to 3,000 miles. So to pay $300 to $400 for an oil change every 2,500 miles, that is a huge expense. Tires. Now, tires, again, depending on how much you drive, you won't go through these as often, but a full set of tires for this is anywhere in the realm of $1,500 to $2,000 for a set of tires, depending on what tires you get. The tires that are on this car now are Nitto NT555 G2 summer tires, and my cost on these tires is about $1,200 and change, so I can expect to pay, depending on what tires you buy, anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 for a set of tires. Brakes is a huge problem. The brakes for this car are stupid. Now, they aren't as expensive as something like carbon ceramics for, you know, a ZR1 or anything like that. So they are steel rotors still. Now, you can probably get away with doing a couple brake pad replacements, maybe one or two before you are going to need rotors. A good set of high-performance brake pads, I don't know exactly how much they cost from Ford, but I know a good set of high-performance brake pads from Hawk is about $200 to $250 just for the brake pads on this car, but that is not where the problem comes in. The problem comes in when you need to replace the rotors. I have been searching for rotors for this car for a while, and I've been searching all around, and it's really hard to find an aftermarket that makes them. And if you need to go with these from Ford, they are available on lethalperformance.com from Ford OE parts for $615 per rotor. And that's about the same for the front as it is for the rear. So $1,500 to $2,000 per axle for brakes, for brake pads and rotors. That is insanely expensive for a car with steel rotors. It's incredibly expensive for a Mustang. So now I know that price and money is all relative. You know, it's all subjective, right? What you can afford is what you can afford. But if you're going into this purchase thinking that it's going to be anything like a Mustang GT or like a Scat Pack or those bottom level muscle cars, you're absolutely wrong. This thing is rather expensive to maintain. Prices are actually really reasonable for the performance that you get out of this car. However, make sure you know what you're getting into with maintenance, insurance, and gas and all that. So let's wrap up this video. Is it worth it? I think it's absolutely worth it, but I can afford it. So you make your own judgment call on that, on whether it's worth it for you to pick up a GT350. For me, it's absolutely worth it, but just know what you're getting yourself into and make sure that you're not just thinking about that monthly payment. Make sure you're thinking about all of the costs that come with the ownership of an automobile. So thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, go down and hit like, go down and hit share and tell your friends. If you want to see more content like this, go ahead and click on that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we post a new video. If you're looking for car detailing products and tools, hit the link in the description below to go to Formal Debut Shop at formaldebushop.com. Check out anything you might need over there. And as always, for Formal Debut Detailing, my name is Dom, and I'll see you guys on the next one.